to inspect or not to inspect? That, my friends, is not the question. You should always hire a professional home inspector to inspect any property that you intend to purchase, whether you intend to occupy the property or rent it out. In this video, we will cover why getting a quality home inspection is so important and why it could be so costly if you don't get it done. Hi, it's Sylvia with My Wealth Builders Realty out of beautiful Nampa, Idaho. If you have recently decided that residential real estate investing is a way that you plan to use to build your disposable income and grow your net worth, welcome. That is what this channel is all about. In most residential real estate transactions, the buyer will have the option to hire a third-party inspector to inspect the property that they intend to buy. This is very important for many reasons. First, whether you intend to occupy the property or not, you really need to be aware of any existing problems and any potential problems that you will need to take care of once you own the property. As we will discuss later, this will directly impact your cash flow and thus your profit when you rent this property out later. Second, in the state of Idaho, as I imagine in many other states, the home inspection is a contingency of the sale. This means that if you do a home inspection and there are several things that you don't want to deal with or take on with this property, you can cancel the transaction and keep all of your earnest money. Third, even if you don't use it as a contingency, it is still a great negotiation tool. Here's the thing, most of the time your offer price is based on what you see when you first walk through the property. Once you have done a thorough home inspection, that offer price might not be something that you're comfortable still offering. Unfortunately, not everyone wields the power of a home inspection like it should. And here are just some of the few reasons that I have heard. It's too much money and frankly, a waste of time. This isn't my first home purchase. I know what I'm looking for. My dad, my friend, my significant other, they're a handyman/contractor. If there's anything that needs to be done with the property, I'm sure they'll take care of it for me. The house is brand new. What can possibly be wrong with it? And whatever is wrong with it, I'm sure the builder will catch it. And the list goes on. Listen, I'm not doubting your capabilities as a handyman/contractor. I am sure that your skills are just fine for most things that need to be done around the house. But let's get real on the in-depth inspections that are required and why these 5 things are the most overlooked when someone is doing it themselves. First up, the crawl space. This is an area under the house that usually, if left up to its own devices, will cause serious problems for a future home buyer. It rarely ever gets any visitors. Due to the freezing temperatures, most houses here are built with a crawl space instead of a slab. And in this crawl space, there is a vapor barrier that is installed that will cover the dirt to keep moisture from rising up and causing issues in that crawl space. Of course, vapor barrier deteriorates over time. You want to be aware of what things can get into the crawl space. And no, I'm not talking about spiders. The number one crawl space offender, water or moisture. Water in the crawl space can come from multiple places. One of the most common is sprinklers that are overspraying through the vents into the crawl space. Or, like I mentioned before, in the state of Idaho, we do get some snow, and if there was snow up against the foundation walls along these vents, as it melts, it can seep into the crawl space as well. Or you might even have a cracked pipe down there leaking water into that crawl space. Water, when left unchecked, is a pretty powerful foe. So earlier I mentioned that not having a proper inspection could cost you on your profitability later on when you rent the property. Well, a leak will cost you money, not just to repair it, but also in your water bill. And anytime you have dampness in a closed up area, you run the risk of mold. Mold, especially black mold, is one of the leading reasons why buyers will back out of a deal. It can be expensive to remediate, and it could cause some serious health issues to anybody living in the house if it's not discovered promptly. Read unhappy or possibly sick tenants. I can tell you with 100% certainty that I've never had one of my buyers go in the crawl space and inspect themselves. I can also tell you that even in new construction, we've had significant issues in the crawl space. So get that area checked. On to the next one. Similar to the crawl space is the attic. The attic is not usually a place where people go. Most attics are not very big, and it's not something that you can stand up and walk around in. You might be able to poke in there, throw a box or two along the entrance of that attic, but that's really about it. But what could be lurking in this attic? Well, as the barrier between your roof and your living space, the attic is most likely where you would see any leaking coming from your roof. A good inspector is on the lookout for any signs of past or current water intrusion. Also, the attic is another one of those places that should stay well ventilated. I have seen when vents have been disconnected when there was a new roof being put on that were never reconnected. I have also seen homes where the bathroom vents were never vented through the roof. So all that hot air and moisture from your hot shower is getting trapped in the attic. Also, when you have the option between a properly insulated home and one that is not insulated, you probably want to opt for the one that's insulated. But how do you know? Well, of course, a home inspector would be able to tell you whether that attic is insulated or not, and if any insulation is needed. A poorly insulated attic can run you some money in the long run. Now, I understand that if you're planning to rent this house, you're thinking, well, the tenant is going to pay that bill, and if it's a little bit more that they got to pay in electricity, that's their problem. Well, here's the thing. As the owner, chances are you're going to have that unit vacant. It's called vacancy rate. And during that time, that would be you that would be paying that electricity bill. A short month in the middle of winter might be an expensive one. If you ever had to move into the house yourself for whatever reason, that might be a problem since you will now be taking care of those electricity bills. And in that case, you'll probably want to make sure that the house is as efficient as it can be. Next up, the roof. Now, I have had clients that have brought their own ladder and climbed up the ladder to look at the roof. Normally, though, they stand at the very top of the rung and look around as best they can. No, I would not be allowing any of my clients to actually get up and walk on the roof unless we had signed waivers from both my client and the seller. Now, without actually walking all over that roof, would you really be in a good position to assess what's going on with that roof? I mean, sure, you'd be able to see maybe some granular loss in certain areas, but not the whole roof. Most of the time, from that vantage point, you probably can't see the nails that were never properly hammered in. That might mean some shingles flying off in the next winter storm. And you might not really be able to see that those vents were actually installed correctly and properly sealed to keep water from going into your attic space. Can you tell how long the roof is going to last or how much life is left in it? In some cases, certain lending programs will require a minimum amount of life left in that roof. Would you be able to tell them that with certainty? And of course, there's the insurance company. I myself recently had my insurance company tell me in a very nice letter that my home roof would no longer be covered. Not because it was damaged, not because it was leaking, not because there was anything else wrong with it other than it had hit the 20-year mark. So we had to replace it. So as you consider your capital expenditure fund, a roof might be something that you would want to know if you need to plan for in the near future or not. Moving on to irrigation, and more importantly, having it properly winterized. As you can see in Idaho, water is bountiful. Now, it does come with its own set of problems though, and one of those is irrigation. For those of you living in Southern California, the idea of plentiful water is probably an absurd notion, and the idea of actually having to winterize anything is even more far-fetched. Winter and tons of water is actually a thing here, and water left to freeze in pipes or irrigation valves over winter is just not a good idea. The water will expand as it freezes, causing the pipe to crack or the valve to be damaged. Come springtime, you might have a huge mess on your lawn. Finding a leaky pipe underground is not an easy thing to do. So what do? Well, if you are purchasing a home in the fall, when irrigation is typically getting turned off, you want to make sure that the homeowner has already winterized the property and can provide you with receipts. And then when irrigation is turned on, you want to keep an eye out for any muddy puddles or wet spots in your lawn. Now, if you are buying when the water is still turned on, you probably want to have the sprinklers run so that you can check that none of them are leaking and there are no other issues in the irrigation system. Unfortunately, if there is water left in the pipes that crack the pipe just enough to have a slow water leak, it might be hard to detect that water and might be leaking over a long period of time. And our final big ticket item is the HVAC system. Your air conditioning and furnace units should really be something that you pay close attention when you're doing this inspection, as they can be very costly to replace. Even if the system isn't very old, you want to make sure that they've been serviced properly so that you don't have a shorter lifespan to deal with once you purchase the property. Home inspectors will always check to make sure that the units are functioning properly, and they will know any stickers of past service for you in your report. If it has been serviced, you probably want to ask the homeowner for the receipts. This is not only to verify that a reputable company did the service, but also you want to keep this just in case there's an issue down the line and that would require the company to come back and take another look. Now, if it has not been serviced, you probably want to have your agent request that the seller service it and provide you with the receipts. HVACs are also one of those things that you want to save up in your capital expenditure fund. Knowing what you are up against is one of the most important factors when you are making a home purchase. You should have a good idea of what the condition of the house is and any repairs that might need your attention should you buy the house. The better the condition of the home, the less disruption you may have later with a tenant and the less money that you will have to spend to repair it. So before we wrap up, I wanted to make a quick note on home inspectors in the state of Idaho. In the state of Idaho, a home inspector does not have to be a contractor, nor do they have to have any special license or special training, and further, there is no real regulatory entity running the show. And although there are opportunities for some of these home inspectors to get certifications from special organizations or join one of the bigger companies to get some on-the-job training, when you are looking for a home inspector, you really want to be mindful of who you hire. I have heard of many people getting burned by people who simply put a sticker on their truck and handed out a business card that said they were a home inspector. If you are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in Nampa, Idaho, I'd love to be your go-to resource for professionals that can give you a quality home inspection. Until next time, my friends, and don't forget to like and share this video with any of your friends that consider themselves handy and might be tempted to buy a property without a proper home inspection. You just might save them some expensive projects down the line.